Hello, everyone. This is Nicole from The Living Well. Today, we are going to talk to a special guest. His name is Seth Katz, and but before we start, please hit the subscribe button so that you can get notifications every time we record a new video. We have so many exciting things coming up, all about healing after narcissistic abuse or trying to heal to overcome a narcissistically abusive situation. So welcome.
Hi Nicole, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for the invite.
So Seth is a life coach and he empowers survivors on overcoming narcissistic or domestic violence situations altogether, right, Seth? And so
Correct,
he works both with men and women.
Correct.
So all you men out there who've been sending me messages saying, hey, don't forget us, this is the guy you want to talk to, and his information will be in the comment section so you can reach out to him and get the assistance you really need, because men are affected on a very large scale, as we were talking about before we started recording. But today we are going to discuss what goes on behind the scenes in the mind of a manipulator. And this is huge because I have so many clients and comments, and it comes up a lot of the time in our group. You know, we get kind of encapsulated in the situation with the manipulator, and they're very convincing. They have so much to say to us about everything they want us to believe, and it's really hard to determine between what's the truth and what's not true, and what, there's a whole game that's being played. So luckily we ran into Seth here, who's willing to give us an inside scoop on this idea. Now, Seth is a self-proclaimed overcomer of a toxic background. Is that correct, Seth? Do you want to talk a little bit about your own healing journey and some of the things you've learned to overcome your trauma?
Yeah, sure. So it kind of started really when I was young. I had a traumatic experience. I was abused as a child. I had sex. I experienced sexual abuse as a child. And what happens is when you experience this traumatic event, it changes you in a lot of ways. It changes how you see the world. It changes how you see people. And it does change your behavior towards certain things. So I came from a very stable background, very loving family, both parents, very big family. But then I guess the older I got, my behaviors were very different in terms of they were very, very outlandish, very weird. But then especially when it came to females, I think because I suffered that particular traumatic event, I was trying to find myself, I was trying to find the love, I was trying to find some type of understanding. And then it kind of led to me taking drugs, me self-soothing with alcohol and stuff like that, and just weird stuff. But then the more so, the biggest one, or the biggest factor, was me meeting women, sleeping around to an excessive amount, because it wasn't the case of just like having a relationship or relations with just one person. It would be like many. But the thing is, in the fact of trying to find something that I could actually hold on to and kind of have the emotional connection, but then it still wasn't there. And then also, this also impacted my work life as well, because I had major anxieties in work. It affected so many areas. But the main areas were around drug taking and women, like to an excessive amount. So when my actually kind of realization of this was I sat and watched a TV program. This was going back like 2000, early 2000. Watched a TV program of men that had been abused. And when I watched and heard some of the stories, I was horrified, and I actually identified that this happened to me. And it was just that whole week. I don't really even think I went into work. I was really upset by it. It kind of really pricked my emotions. It really, really, really woke me up. And I think that was the start of the journey. But if you think about in the 2000s, no, there wasn't much support for men. Then there wasn't, um, the internet was just in the early inception. So there wasn't much information around that. There was no Me Too movement. There was nothing. So I then had to go from one person to another, reading books, trying to understand what psychological effects I was carrying, and try to work it out. And it wasn't until maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I met with a therapist, one that dealt with PTSD, childhood trauma, things like that. And then we started the whole journey of therapy, like correct therapy. And that's when I started to understand the real seriousness of what had happened to me, first of all. Secondly, understanding the remorse that I had for people that whose lives I had messed up in a way, and lied to and kind of manipulated as well. But also, it kind of, it filled a massive void, because I now understand like what was happening to me. Like, and it was really empowering. But then the thing is, the journey was still continuing, because then I needed to evolve to the person who I am now. And I think this is where, like, so I'm not the finished article yet, but I'm more healed than I've been in my entire life now. So, I've got a really good relationship with my wife, my kids, my family. And the way I stand for myself is very different to how I stood for myself and what I used to previously be like, because it's just completely, it's almost like two different people, and I can actually feel that. So, but I definitely, one of the main things is because although I suffered that traumatic experience, I was a empathetic person, right? So this is one thing to kind of bear in mind, is not all people who suffer traumatic experiences or child abuse or any type of experience like that, that are that they are, if they're empathetic people, like genuinely empathetic people, they don't turn into these narcissistic, horrible people that you hear in the news, and you hear people talk about that much.
Can
So
you elaborate a little bit on the difference between the two? How do you know if a person is geared more towards the empathetic? Because you obviously relate to being a manipulator, but
mm,
there's a line between that you're drawing between being a manipulator, not a full-blown narcissist. What are some of the factors or the key components that would articulate that differential in those two things?
so first of all, so let's break it down as what you're saying. That's a really good question. So we're going to work on a scale, okay? So on your left, you're going to have someone who's highly empathetic, okay? On one side, and on the other side, you're going to go low empathy, right? And in the middle, you're going to have your narcissist. Now, if someone's highly empathetic and they suffer a traumatic experience, they would, the experience that they actually go through, if they have a high level of empathy, it wouldn't affect them in that particular way, like to be that full-blown narcissist. And don't forget, to be a narcissist, you have to have 5 of the 9 traits. Like, you have to be clinically diagnosed to have 5 of the 9 9 traits. But then on the other side, the low empathy side, you've got like your narcissist in the center, you've got moving into your sociopath, and then your psychopath as well. So it kind of moves up the scale. So if I'm moving from a highly empathetic person to then my narcissist, and then I move into my sociopath, and then I move into my psychopath, this is the scale that actually determines or dictates where someone is on that scale. So with me, highly empathetic person, love cats, love children, love life, love people. However, I had a knock, maybe 2 knocks, or where I had kind of a self-loathing of myself and my actual value. I never had value in myself. I never saw myself as worthy. I needed to have validation. I needed to always have external validation, because I never thought that I was a nice person or a good person. People would say that I'm nice, and it'd be like, yeah, fine, it's okay. But I always needed that external validation, and I think this is why it led to me having so many relationships, because I was always searching for more validation. So then this is how you can understand it, and this is how you can break it down. So
before we move on, though, I want to clear that up for women and men, people that are kind of trying to figure out if their loved one is a narcissist. So I think what you're trying to tell us is that a person who is going higher up on the spectrum of narcissistic personality disorders, and plus, are those that have displayed less and less empathy. So the more
Correct.
empathetic they are, the less likely they are to be a narcissist. And the way that would come out in their everyday life is they would be able to show compassion or understand other people's feelings, get in the shoes of other people, and then not do things to other people that they know are harming them deliberately, right? Because they would be moved because of their own compassion for that individual
Correct.
to not act in such a way. So those are the delineating factors that contribute to, being more higher on the spectrum, the less empathy, the more often you do things that are at the expense of other people, the higher up on the spectrum you are. Yeah. Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
So, okay. So then this seemed like, first of all, it's huge. It's very highly commendable, because we live in a world full of people who do not want to look at themselves clearly. They're in denial about the truth about themselves, especially if you're a narcissist. This is how I know you're not a narcissist, because a narcissist is never self-reflective. They will never stop and go, this is not working for me. I'm not benefiting. I don't even like the way this is going, and I'm going to make some shifts. So what can I do inside of me to make my situation better? Narcissist projects all the blame on everybody else, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They never take responsibility.
Never take responsibility. Never take responsibility. And that's the thing with me, is after I had my therapy, I sat down and had a conversation with a really good friend of mine, and they explained what it's like to be cheated on. And I think for about 2 weeks that hit me. They said that they look at themselves in a different way. They don't feel that they're really worthy enough. They don't feel they think about what the other person is doing with the person that they're cheating with, stuff like that. So when I heard that, my brain was like, my conscience was like, oh my God, I went numb. Like, it really hit me. And then I started thinking about the people that I had hurt and things like that. I was really, really, really cut up by it.
A moment of clarity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was like, I can actually remember it. Because we were just talking in a pub, and we were like, well, she was like, this is exactly what happens. And I thought, wow, so is this the devastation that I leave behind, and not knowing, no idea then, like, how can I know? But that was like a light bulb moment for me. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Excellent.
Really.
Well, I really respect that. So thank you. So now that we've established that you are a reformed manipulator, now we find your brain very valuable because we want to know so many things. It's almost like we're getting, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get an insider scoop to some of the thinking or the way that a manipulator would rationalize. Like you said, you didn't even think about the damage that, or the rubble that you were leaving behind you. Like I like to say, these guys are out collecting a jar of hearts and getting away with it, you know, and it's like, oh, well, you know, I want to do XYZ. So if it hurts your feelings, not my problem. But what we want to know are some pointed questions on what goes on in the mind of somebody like this, so that women and men can empower themselves with an education, because education is actually the antidote to manipulation, right? Because once you know, you can no longer fall for these games, because now you're able to identify, no, that's gaslighting. No, you're stonewalling me. No, you're giving me the silent treatment. No, you're just telling me what I want to hear. So I'll give you what you want. And so that's the value of having this conversation that I wanted to bring my listeners. So I want to help these ladies out who are like, he's telling me I'm going to change. I swear to God, he's going to go to therapy. He's going to do XYZ. So do manipulators know that they're manipulating? I mean, do they consciously sit down and go, okay, I met this girl now. I want to get her all to fall in love with me, so they love bomb her on purpose and get her all wrapped up, and then go, oh, I should get her to move in with me, or get her to have my baby, or get her locked down so that I don't have to work so hard. Does this consciously develop in the mind of a manipulator, or is it just learned behavior that is almost subconscious, that it's just coming out of you because you know you have to make these moves? Because they say a manipulator is like sitting on one side of a chess table and they are making maneuvers to get what they want out of each individual that they meet. Is that correct?
So I guess, so I'm going to put two answers there. So in my case, I had an awareness, like I was aware of what I was doing. I knew it was like bad, but I was like, hey, no problem. It's not that bad. And I never really kind of understood the whole mental side and the psychological side. It was actually going to the victim. However, a narcissistic manipulator, don't forget, we're looking at the scale now. Let's look at the scale from high empathy to low empathy, up the scale. When a manipulator, or when a narcissistic manipulator, a true narcissistic manipulator, right, meets a victim or meets a person, they scope you out, they probe. So you know what probing is. They kind of circle and kind of look for, it's like a burglar trying to break into a house. It's like, are your windows open? Are your doors open? What time do you turn the lights on? What time do you turn the lights off? What time do you go to bed? They look at probing things because they want to see patterns. So if I see a pattern, then I can put myself or place myself in the right place at the right time to assimilate into those type of things that are happening. Right. So when a narcissist sees that, then they go, okay, I see what's happening. Like, it's almost like them seeing the play. Like, you know, we talk about the whole American football thing, all right? You know, when you see the play, look at how the play comes out. If they see something that they want, or they see something, because a narcissist will only look for supply. So the supply could be emotional, could be physical, financial, sexual. There's a play to it, right? But don't forget, you can't go in with a playbook straight away. You need to probe. So I need to probe your emotional boundaries to see what your emotional resilience is like. That's the first thing. If you're a strong person, I'm trying to break down or probe your physical boundaries by doing certain things. If I'm looking at your financial side, I'm trying to probe how you are with your finances. And the same with sexually as well. Manipulators, like narcissistic manipulators, probe first. They never go in like point blank. They probe. And when they probe and then they learn, that is when they start bringing out their playbook. So, in American football, the offense is making, like, they'll run 2 yards, start again, run 5 yards, then we're going to throw a pass. And then for the victim, they are putting up these defensive stops, these boundaries, because when you meet someone, you're going to be like, no, 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 no. But then because these probes and these attacks are consistent, the victim gets tired. That's what happens in an American football game. Is after a period of time, the offense makes so many yards, the defense gets tired. And before you know it, the defense is backed up in their own end zone, really. And then they start leaking points. And then they want to know, well, what's happened? How did this happen? But that's how a manipulator, a narcissistic manipulator works. They get into that whole probing thing. They love probing. They love asking questions. They love kind of being around because it gives them a sense of understanding. They're like, oh, okay, you've got the keys there. Okay, I'm going to keep that in mind. Okay. And they're going to ask another question. Where's that happening? Where's this? And they keep that in mind because it's all probing and all information for them.
So what are some of the techniques? So once they've gathered the data against you to use against you, what are the techniques that what are the plays? What are some of the plays that they use to get a person, what is the goal? They want to get them attached emotionally to them so that they then can gain supply out of their target?
Well, it depends. Well, first of all, it depends what the narcissist is actually trying to go for first. What's their prize? So you think about a lion, right? Like a lion is trying to, if a lion is hungry and it goes for it's actually trying to stalk a victim or stalk prey, it will monitor that prey for like months. But then its tactics would be like a narcissistic tactic would be okay with the whole, maybe if two people are like sleeping together, share a bed, waking them up at middle of the night, like sleep deprivation, the whole gaslighting, playing with their emotions, withdrawal of sex, projection, word salad, triangulation. They have so many different things that they confuse because don't forget they're attacks. They're all different attacks. And don't forget, if someone is not resilient to those attacks or they lose resilience, they eventually break down. And what you find is a victim who gives away everything because they're just so tired. They don't have enough emotional resilience to say enough. They don't even have emotional resilience to even leave. So they've got them in a state of flux. They're like, I'm stuck. I don't know whether to go forward or backwards. I've got no money. I've got no friends. And that's how a true manipulator works. They isolate. They need to isolate. You bet your bottom dollar if you have one friend, right? They will try to get rid of that friend. They'll try to sleep with that friend. They will try to do anything to those connections that you have to break connections. Because why? Strength is in numbers. If you're just one person against one person, you have no strength. So if you have 5, 6, 7 people who believe you and they don't believe the narcissist will do all they can to break those relationships that you have. Oh, why are you going out? Why are you going and see that person for? I don't like that person. That person has never liked me. And they'll try to create all these things. And then for the victim, they'll be like, oh, don't worry, it's fine. But they'll just keep on and on and on until the victim goes, okay, I'm not going to go see that person.
So really quickly, just the antidote for these two things, because I always bring my clients problems, but I always show up with the answers. So because I like to give my company and my YouTube channel, everything I do is geared towards helping women and men overcome this situation and heal and deal with it, right? So first of all, as you mentioned, the antidote to a manipulator's manipulation, the whole video game that they're playing is one, boundaries, right? Is setting standards. And like we discussed the other day, you know, making those boundaries clear and then not giving in and not allowing the narcissist to push or manipulate or maneuver your boundaries, but to keep them solid and strong. For example, once you've determined, I don't accept cheating, or I don't like being lied to, or I won't be called the B word. You know, those are all my personal boundaries. And if somebody violates those boundaries, then they get a warning. And then the second time they do it, they're proving to you they're not going to respect your boundary. So the consequences has to be executed, because otherwise a boundary is nothing without an execution, right?
Exactly.
But we have to be willing and able to stand up for ourselves and say, I'm not tolerating that, and I will be without you if I have to be, in order to make that the reality for myself, because I care enough about myself. This is why we keep promoting self-love and caring enough about your own life enough to be able to protect yourself from somebody who's intentionally trying to violate, manipulate, and use you. This is a perpetrator, right?
Exactly.
What happens to women is we fall in love with a man thinking we're in a relationship, but it's not. It's a manipulationship. It's not a relationship.
No, it's not.
Like you said, none of what you just said was about a partnership, a reciprocation, love, connection, intimacy. It's all about, how can I get what I want out of you?
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
And I don't care about how that's going to make you feel or how it's going to affect you or what it's going to do to you. As a matter of fact, I'm perfectly fine with allowing it to destroy you.
Exactly.
As long as I get what I want. And that is the name of the game. So that's first is having boundaries and educating yourself, because now when a woman hears this, or a man, and this starts to happen to them, they are now wiser and aware, you know, more aware. It's going to be not an easy thing to do, but they'll be more aware of this, the procedures, the manipulation tactics that people will use. Basically, they're con artists who are trying to con you. So, okay.
Exactly.
So that's the second thing, right? So the next question I had for you is, once a woman is aware, or a man, of, the third point I was going to bring out real quick is time, because a narcissist wants to move quickly. Once they've probed you and they're aware, right? They want to hurry up.
They want to meet you Saturday, sleep with you Sunday, marry you Monday, buy a house with you Tuesday, and kill you by Wednesday. Literally.
Yeah.
So you know, and that's the thing. What some people, what victims or what survivors have to really understand, right? We all have our faults and we all have our things about us, right? We need to ask ourselves, am I ready? First of all, am I ready for a relationship? Because some victims, some survivors are carrying excessive amounts of emotional baggage, which puts them in a position to be for exploitation. Here's why. Someone who suffers a traumatic experience as a child, someone who has abandonment issues, someone who has like being parentification, who has parentification issues, right? What happens is they need to and actually go through a session of soul searching to kind of understand, is this something that could affect me in a relationship? Because these are the questions we don't ask ourselves. But my parents don't tell us this. Nobody tells us this. We need to take a step back first before we get into any relationship and to say, is my mechanisms working as they should? Like internal mechanisms, my mind, my conscience, my emotions. Because what happens is subconsciously we project, right? When we meet someone, especially a narcissist, we project on them. They mirror us. They mirror what they see. So if I am projecting subconsciously, I'm hurt, I have anxieties, I have historical issues, I subconsciously project those to a narcissist, and he or she picks them up and reflects it back as myself, right? And this is something far deeper. This is the first step. Like, this is something that I wish I had known long ago, to ask myself the question, am I ready to date first? Am I ready to date? Are my emotions in check? Do I have everything in check first before I actually go and start meeting people and getting into the whole dating game? Because what happens is we go, someone goes and meets a narcissist or comes across a narcissist, they find your weak spots. And then when they come to people like you and me, the first thing, when we looking back at the trauma, yeah, I had abandonment issues, and I thought that by being with this man, he would have helped solve them. I had a traumatic child abuse, I suffered child abuse, and blah, blah, blah. I thought by being with this person, that would have helped them. That's what, by not actually looking back and saying, hey, I've experienced something, and fixing it before you get into it, you're building up your resilience, your stamina, emotional stamina, to be able to, first of all, say no. Because don't forget, if someone is pushy and you haven't worked on your resilience, they're just going to brush past you. They're not going to hear what you're saying. They're not going to hear your screams. They're not going to hear your cries. They're just going to completely disregard how you feel. So this is one of the most important things that you can do before you even get out the door. Look at yourself and say, am I ready, truly ready for this? And if so, what areas do I need to really look at? Do I need to look at this? And if so, go and speak to people, get help, talk about it, be open. Go onto Facebook groups, talk about, like, you know, I'm thinking this could affect me. I think that this is something like I've suppressed. Get talking about it, because when you start talking about it, then you come to the realization. And then when the realization happens, then you can put the plan in action. So when you go out on the road, or when you go and meet a narcissist now, you are strong. Because, and this is the thing, a narcissist hates to the T someone who has boundaries and someone who plays hardball. I'm serious. They hate someone who plays hardball. You play
Really quick,
hardball.
Seth, before we move on, I wanted to say a thought, because I think this will really bring home the point that you're making. It's kind of like going on a road trip. You want to make sure that your car is all, you got your oil change, you got your tires have been checked. You don't want to go and risk it on being on the road in the middle of nowhere and having, like you said, weak parts of the car that now give in, like a tire. Now you're stuck in the middle of the road and you can't deal with it because it's at night. And well, you're in a position you don't want to be in because you're ill prepared to handle the journey. And that's so many times happens with my clients. They get out because they have this inner loneliness, is what it is. That's the reason why codependents can't stay alone, is because they have this pathological lonely deficiency going on that makes them feel like, in order to feel whole, I have to be with someone else. And so they always jump back into a relationship again. And that's because of that reason. But the ramifications of that is like going on a journey, like we just discussed, and then
Exactly.
not being prepared and not ending up in a situation we don't want to be in and suffering
Exactly.
because we didn't do the work first to make sure we were prepared for what we were trying.
Very
So
true.
good. So, okay. So once somebody's figured out, okay, it's highly probable I'm with a narcissist, they have rushed me into a relationship, they're pushing my boundaries, they're not respecting my nose and my lines in the sand when I'm expressing things that I want. Because really quickly, I'm going to get into boundaries later with Samar today. We're doing a live and on boundaries. And really, like you said, anybody who's not a manipulator would respect somebody's right to say, hey, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, I don't like to be treated like this. Everybody has their love style, right?
Exactly.
And so those that respect you will respect your stance on things and wouldn't violate those. But a predator would intentionally, I was married to one who every time I'd set a boundary, he would intentionally do the opposite every time, as to show me, I'm not listening to your rules. I'm not going to respect your boundaries. As a matter of fact, I spit and poo-poo all over your boundaries, just so you know. So the antidote then is to put your foot down and put your foot up there, you know where, and tell them then you've got to go. You don't respect me.
Exactly.
Because that's what the bottom line is. You don't respect my boundaries, then you don't respect me. And if you don't respect me, you really don't care about me. And if you really don't care about me, why are we in a relationship together?
Exactly. Exactly. And also, so as well, I look at relationships now like how I look at my work, how I look at a job, right? You have your first 6 months is your probationary period, right? You set up your objectives. What are we trying to achieve in this 6 month period? So you're trying to achieve a level of proficiency and competence in that particular time. Then you readdress it each year and you look at what the person has achieved or not achieved, and then you just keep on assessing that, because that's the best way to assess a narcissist, in terms of, you haven't met this, so this is the consequence. They hate consequences. They truly hate it, because when you set the boundary and you set the consequence and then you say, this is it, they're like, but what happened and why? It's like,
Exactly.
you have to
That was
treat
going to be my
people.
next question is
Mm,
when you get to that space and then you
mm,
have to put your foot down and say, look, you're not respecting my boundaries. You're not listening. We have too many problems. I have to go.
mm,
Then
mm.
every time a narcissist go, wait, please
Yeah,
don't leave. What do
yeah,
I got to
exactly.
do? I'll go to
Yeah,
therapy. I'll do XYZ.
there
So
is no.
yeah, there's this push-pull thing. They push you to have
Yeah,
to leave.
yeah,
And then when you pack
and
your
then pull you
bags and you
back.
walk out the door,
Yeah.
what's going on there?
What it is, you want the person to come back to the original self. It's the the example I use is the good cop, bad cop, right? So if you've seen these movies, the good cop comes in, talks to the prisoner, gives them the sweet talk. The prisoner likes it, and they'll go, just 1 minute. The bad cop comes in, no talking, gives them a beat down. They're like, oh, please help me, please help me. I'll talk. And then you've got an interchangeable person. But
Mhm.
if a person keeps on doing that to you, what's it saying about you and what's it saying about them? It's quite, some people don't want to acknowledge the fact of where they are. It's like, we're in a sinking ship. My ship is sinking. It's taking on water. But some people just look around and go, "Oh, it's taking in a bit of water, but I could make it to land. But land is like 1,000 miles away." But they really believe that they can actually save the ship. You can't save the ship. Only two people can save a ship, not one.
Mm.
Two people, it takes two to tango, not one person to tango. So if you're tangoing, he's doing the foxtrot. If you're doing whatever dance you're doing, they're doing something completely different. You
Yeah.
need to understand that when it gets to you saying, This is it, I'm finished. Stick to that. Stick to when you close that door, it's no contact. We say it's no contact because of the emotional attachments and the pull. It's like, it's almost like it's equivalent to someone on drugs or someone in who's trying to withdraw from drugs like heroin or crack, or one of those kind of really drugs that strong pulls, right? The high that they bring you, the serotonin and all those kind of endorphins and things like that, that is a rush. But then also when they're not there, it's the lows.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's a mental thing that you know that you need to work with and actually stick to. But know that thousands of people go through this, men and women. When they break up in relationships, they feel low, they feel sad, they feel lonely, they feel down because of that emotional high that the narcissist brings. They bring chaos and they bring a bit of stability and they bring chaos again, and it's just a repetitive cycle.
So are
You'll
they doing
always
that
be
on
living that.
purpose? So this is the push-pull thing that forces women or people into the trauma bond. So like you're saying, one minute they're nice, good cop, one minute they're the bad cop, and you never know what you're gonna get. Is that an intentional? Are they having a good day and a bad day, or are they thinking, okay, things have been too calm now, I need to spice it up a bit to keep her off balance?
No, so they go through different kind of emotional stages. So what I find with most narcissists is they go through the whole childlike stage. They behave like they're like small children almost. They're like
Yeah,
big
they have the emotional
grown.
capacity of a small child. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you catch them out, they lie. They
Mhm.
lie. It's like how you talk to like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. Really, like, have you done that? No. You sure? No.
But
Like,
did you eat the
but you
cookie?
have.
No, there's chocolate all over
No.
your face. Mm-mm.
No. But they'll still lie. Then
Yeah.
it's something that it's their defense mechanism that
Mm.
that makes them still continue and behave in that type of way. And the fact of the no empathy, don't forget, we go back to our scale, the low empathy is coupled in with that, and the not caring. It's like, to them, it's a perfect mix. It's a perfect mix. It's not, they 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 don't, it's not like they don't have an emotional or conscience. It's just that where they are on the scale, the emotional scale, from a high empathy to low empathy, it's not really resonating with them. Like you
Yeah.
crying, you're not resonating with me
No.
because I don't have the emotion.
Yeah.
Like I have low emotion. So I look at you and go, what are you crying for? Don't be so silly. Don't be so,
Yeah. Right.
and just make you feel bad rather than a
Mm.
hug and true and true emotion.
Yeah.
What they've used to do in the first like month or two before when things were great, they are actually copying your behaviors. They're
Mm.
actually learning your behaviors. And when you're sad, oh yeah, don't worry, come, let me give you a hug and blah blah blah. But then it changes to their real self once
Mm.
their mask falls off because they can't
Ladies,
keep
did
that.
you hear that? That's
Mm,
real self.
mm.
Because
When
we
that,
don't realize that
yeah,
as
when
on the
that
opposite.
mask comes off.
That's the real person. Because we always
Mm,
wonder, because they have this Jekyll and Hyde thing going on, and it's like,
mm,
are they Jekyll or are they Hyde, or is who they are whole, like both of those people combined, and one day they're having a good day or they've been triggered or whatever. But you're mentioning, so when they are being nice, it's a facade, and the down meaner, I was married to one who was just mean. He was just so miserable all the time, so unhappy. That's the real
mm,
person, right? And then they hide it from you because they don't
mm.
want you to know who they
Of
really
course.
are.
Of course, like who in them right mind? Like when you
Yeah.
look at a narcissistic behavior in the person that you're going out with now, those people that are actually listening now, when you look at like your partner's behavior now, think back to when you first met them. If they behaved in that way
Yeah.
consistently, would you go out with them?
No, nobody
No.
would. No one would sign up for
Exactly.
that. Yes, they have to
Exactly.
hide it. So
They
they've
have to
learned
hide.
then how to get their needs met by
Mm,
hiding this side of themselves to
mm,
get you to fall for them, right? So that then
yeah.
they can. So do they realize once you fall in love with them that they now have got you where they like you, and then now the mask can start to slip because it gets too hard to, I always notice it takes like 3 months. It's like this 3-month window where it becomes, is it so weird? It's like 3 months like clockwork. It's like too
It,
hard to hold it up anymore. I've got to let it, I want to be myself again. It's too much work.
it's not, it's the 3 month time is when you start to give yourself emotionally as a female. Men slightly bit more quicker, but females, the 3 month thing. Because don't forget, if you think about a typical relationship, there's a lots of dating, there's a lots of courtship. You've been a month, 2 month, hold off, like no kind of intimacy. And intimacy starts. Once that intimacy starts, boundaries start getting crossed and different dynamics start happening. And then, so generally after the 3 month period is when you you're actually in a relationship with someone, because the dynamic of them being a stranger changes to them being more of a regular person. They stop being a stranger like to you, so you stop seeing them as a stranger, and they start kind of getting more comfortable with who they
Mm,
are. And
mm.
then this is why that 3 month, normally that 3 month mark, 3 to 6 month mark normally happens, but it's normally after like a few times of intimacy, because then for a female, she feels more comfortable, a lot more like, oh wow, yes, I found the person now.
Attached. Yeah, they get
Yeah.
attached. So
Mm,
that's usually when the degrading starts to happen, right? And the
mm,
devaluation.
mm.
So
But but then they would happen in small things. They would happen in like, why is your hair like that? Why you're so stupid? Why do you dress like that? You dress like an, and they're the
you've
small
gained a
things
little
that
bit of
start.
weight. Yeah,
Yeah,
things you just
they're
wouldn't say to people, right? Because you know it would hurt their feelings. Normal people just
exactly,
wouldn't. Yeah.
exactly. But it will start small scale. You'll never go from 0 to 100. You'll go from 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, and then it will just move along the scale.
Like a frog in hot water, not knowing it's
Yeah,
being cooked alive.
yeah.
Yes.
Just continue.
So what's the purpose of degrading, the devaluing? Is it to start to wear the person down, their self-confidence? They'll put up with more bad behavior and other manipulation technique.
Well, the thing is, self-esteem is one of the most important behaviors that we have. It's so important. Like self-esteem, if you think of self-esteem is the wind, right?
Mm.
We don't see it, we can feel it, we know it's there. It's strong enough to cause a hurricane, but weak enough to dry our clothes. That's how self-esteem is.
Mm.
And if you don't have self-esteem, it controls a lot of our functions. And it controls a lot to do with our emotions, how we feel emotionally. If I'm, if, because I can be self-confident, but I can have low self-esteem, which I had. So self-esteem is key to our existence. It controls a lot of brain function, a lot of anxieties. It, 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 um, it also controls how we see ourselves, and controls how we see ourselves in kind of like value. Like, so if my self-esteem is high, I'm going to think, well, I deserve this. This is what I deserve, because I don't deserve to experience this. But if my self-esteem is low, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be too bothered about how somebody treats me because my value is low anyway.
Mm.
So, it's like a key ingredients of us. Key. It's
Mm.
like one of the most key ingredients of us. So the narcissist, the true narcissist, knows how to attack that, because they degrade and they put down, we feel bad, we feel sorry, we then cry, we go into our shell, we don't want to talk, and then we know that it's like they become a ringmaster. Like, you know, like when you go to the circus and someone cracks a whip, it's like, you know that the animal's caged and they're upset, they're hurt, they cry, they're in pain, but they see the ringmaster, okay, my ringmaster might give me love. And they can, that's the only person that they feel attached to and feel worthy of giving them that praise. And that's why many people are in this trauma bond thing and the whole Stockholm syndrome, because that's the only person who kind of gives them praise, but also puts them down.
So only somebody that doesn't have empathy would intentionally prey on someone they know has a vulnerability. It's like robbing like an old woman on the corner with taking her purse. You know, it's like, you know, she can't defend herself and yet you attack her. It's terrible, terrible. So, okay, with that said, what is your opinion on whether or not the narcissist can change?
They can't change. So first of all, you have to also now start going a bit deeper now. This is the whole psychology of a narcissist now. You've got to kind of understand that for them to be clinically diagnosed as a narcissist, they have to show the 9 traits. They have to show 5 out of the 9 traits. And the 9 traits, they spread around a certain behavior. So grandiose, self-loathing, future faking, projections, things like that, right? This is where this is their realm. These are their key behaviors, right? So when you talk about healing of a narcissist, go back to your scale, right? If they have all the 5, like the 5 out of the 9, and they have that low empathy, it's a neural pathway that's been kind of carved out in their mind. So in terms of healing, they haven't been able to there is no healing from that. Now, if they have like maybe 1 or 2 of those traits, there could be possible healing. More, there could be a way of like helping them. Like me, I might have had like maybe just 1. Like them is the whole manipulation thing. But in terms of like when they have the 5, 6 and clinically diagnosed and with it coupled in with low empathy, the actual healing, there is no healing. There's only it's more so you can treat, but you can't cure. That's the best way to really see that.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on this, and basically you could probably teach a narcissist how to change some behavior patterns, but to actually get them to start, how do you teach someone to start caring about other people? You know, how do you teach someone to rebuild parts of their brain that didn't develop as children? You know, so that's where the challenge comes in. But we don't realize that when we're in a relationship. So all of this has been so helpful, Seth. I really appreciate it. We're definitely going to have you back again, and we will be talking more about the inside of the mind of a manipulator. If you want to work with Seth, again, he sees both women and men. So if you want to work with Seth, you'll be able to find his contact details in the chat below. And this has been invaluable. Thank you. I very much appreciate it. I know a lot of people will too. Thank you, Seth. Okay, everyone, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye now.